Welcome again, Gemini. It's November 2015. Dadhichi here from astrology.com.au with your month in focus, and interesting stuff going on in the heavens for you. And as I mentioned at the beginning of last month's forecast, I will be focusing a little this month as well on the whole idea of self-empowerment and how the transits are working in that respect for you, because it's a pretty big month in terms of the new moon being in Scorpio, your sixth house, the horoscope. That's the first thing. Second thing is your ruling planet Mercury has gone into its forward motion now after being retrograde for a while. That was in your fifth house of love affairs, if you recall. That's gone forward now in your house of love affairs. So your communication should be working much, much better for you in that sense. And you got around 2 or 3 days. On the 2nd, it moves into the sign of Scorpio to join up with the sun there. Sixth house has to do with your work and your, your co-workers, the environment in which you work. It's also got to do, to some extent, with your daily routine. So a lot of energy going on there. And, we mustn't forget that recent transit of Saturn into your zone of marriage and intimate relationships is really going to put the brakes on there. So what's causing you to be limited, to be constrained, and how can you continue to develop this whole notion of self-empowerment, to be free within yourself, notwithstanding the circumstances that you find yourself in, and particularly in that area. So the next couple of years is going to be a pretty challenging one for you in relationships, in the way you deal with the public. And now we see also that the North Node, or the karmic point, is about to move out of this fifth house. It moves in a reverse motion. It's pretty much moving in reverse, contrary to the normal planets. That'll move into your fourth house shortly, which has a lot to do with your peace of mind and happiness. So you've got to get all of this right. Your domestic sphere is going to be affected at that time. But for now, your relationships, the workplace environment, and we see also that on the 9th, there's the movement of Venus into your fifth house, and then on the 13th, the movement of Mars into your fifth house. That's a strong conjunction there. It's actually, those two planets are with Jupiter right now in your fourth house. So a lot of energy in that area as well, but that will shift. Love affairs, creativity, children, and all of those things that are going to give you that sense, the sense of self-empowerment that I'm talking about, also has a lot to do with how free you feel in yourself through what you do. So this creative spurt that I'm seeing for you throughout the month of November is a good one, because it affords you the opportunity to just forget about all that stuff that's weighing you down. You say, well, hang on, if I forget about it, how am I going to solve the problem? Well, you've got to put those problems on a tin roof occasionally. Sometimes, and in fact, if you study the problems that you've had in your life, often those problems are solved not by yourself. Sometimes, and a lot of the times actually, they're solved by the circumstances changing, people coming in from nowhere, offering you some advice. And even if you are going to solve it, sometimes, absolutely at this moment, you cannot. So there's no point worrying about it. You need to create, let your mind free, allow yourself to relax, and at the appropriate time, you can make the changes and solve those problems. So this coming few weeks is going to be a big one for your creativity. We see a bit more structure to your relationships. On the 12th, which occurs just before the transit of Mars to your fifth house, we do have that new moon in Scorpio. So a whole new gamut of opportunities open up for you in your working environment. Maybe new people coming into the workplace, maybe you leaving the workplace and starting a new job, something along those lines. At least your methodologies in work could also be due for a shake-up. This could be like the spring cleaning that is necessary, even if it's not spring where you are, to tidy up, clean up, and make more efficient your work practices and methodologies. The planet Neptune has been in your 10th house of career while we're on this topic. It's been retrograde, so that's been increasing the energy of Neptune, making you much, much more idealistic, but also in some cases making you confused, blurring the lines. It's a bit nebulous as to what it is you're doing, what it is you want, where it is you're going in terms of your professional life. So these transits that we see now are all very much about shifting your awareness, doing the sort of work that is in keeping with your talents and your desires. And that itself has to be liberating, which in turn can empower you to be the person that you want. It's nice we see Jupiter in your 4th house. So you can, if you use that against all of these other troublesome transits that I'm seeing for you, you can use this to balance your inner life and give you a sense of happiness. We do know that your transformation is going to take many, many years because of the transit of Pluto in your 8th house in Capricorn, which really does its job at the deepest unconscious levels of your being. The month starts off with a very powerful opposition from the Moon to Pluto. That's a financial moon this month, being in your 2nd house. So there could be some lessons there for you in that respect, but mainly in that area of workplace activities. The full moon takes place on the 26th, and that should be noted for you as well. That takes place in that 7th house, relationships. And although you've had that constrictive Saturn there, this is a full moon that's probably going to bring back with it some better feelings. It will shift the financial questions that you have to the partner, and that person themselves may be undergoing some difficulties financially during this cycle. So you may be in a position to help them, and in helping them, you're helping yourself as well. Some rather abrupt changes or even journeys for you around the 24th. That precedes the full moon I just mentioned, Venus in opposition to Uranus. And there we see that may have something to do with a love affair. If you're not married, you may have to travel to visit someone that you are close to in a foreign place. 12th house, which is ruled by Venus, has to do with hospitals. So maybe someone's not well at that time and you're called to maybe give them some assistance. In any case, what happens at that time is really not something that's endeavoured or expected, and you need to pencil that in your diary. Mars in a very favourable aspect to Saturn on the 24th as well. So that's very, very constructive. That makes that inner child of yours come out to the full, but it also gives you the steadying hand of Saturn there. It could be that steadying hand comes from someone else, someone who can see that you are talented in some ways, but where they realise you need a bit of methodology, a little bit of discipline to what it is you're doing to make it much, much more successful. So that's all good stuff as well. Confusion around the 25th with the square aspect of Mercury to Neptune is evident there. Again, we see Mercury moving very, very fast now that it's gone into its forward motion. So this is an important transit. All of the transits of Mercury, and there are plenty of them from the 24th to the 29th. I'll just go through them quickly for you. But suffice to say, you're going to be pretty busy at that time. It quickly moves through the 6th house of work and career environments into the 7th house of relationships. And that's going to augment that the full moon that we see in that relationship area. So that square aspect can show some confusing or misinterpretations over discussions, letters, emails, and the written word are far safer for you because you might just miss something, or the other person may miss something, and that can embroil you in a whole sort of disputational phase. So be careful of that, and that'll be leading up to that point. Now, the other aspects, Saturn is going to be conjoined by Mercury on the 25th, and on the 25th and 26th, Mercury does that aspect to Neptune I mentioned, then the sextile to Mars. That makes you really emboldened intellectually. You want to do something meaningful. And if people are going to obstruct you, that's not going to be very good for them, is it? You could be very argumentative at that time. Around the same time, you've got a hard aspect from Saturn to Neptune. So that Neptune aspect, being in your career sector, shows us pretty much the domain in which a lot of these issues can occur. That is your professional arena. So be careful. Neptune can be very nebulous and calls for you to be much more diligent and clear in your communication. There is another hard aspect, sort of a middling aspect. Sun comes into the conjunction of Saturn, there again in your 7th house on the 30th, and that can indicate some additional responsibilities placed upon you by your lover or your spouse or business partner. But I'm sure you can handle it. You've got the strength of those planets in the 5th house, giving you an upbeat mind and a creative sense of initiative. So go for it, Gemini, I say. And in the meantime, subscribe here if you want. Visit my site, astrology.com.au. There's more detailed analysis of this, as I usually say, textual-based analysis, daily, monthly, yearly readings, and personal reading with me or some of my associates if you'd like something a little more personal. Till next month, have a safe and happy one. I'll see you shortly. Bye-bye.